Well, you all have made it to close to the end. So I want to say that it's amazing you're demonstrating an incredible amount of staying power. So we really appreciate all of you being here. It's a lot of content over the last 2 days, but hopefully it's been something where, we've kind of talked about a huge diversity of issues that affect transportation electrification. And so I think now I'm very excited to have a little bit of a fireside chat. We always talk about these being fireside chats, no fires. But to talk a little bit about the regulations that are in process at the APA. And so thank you for joining us.
Thank you, man.
So as a starting point, I guess, for this, last spring, the EPA was proposing new stringent tailpipe standards for light and medium and heavy-duty vehicles. And final standards are currently in the interagency review and expected to come out soon. Like today, maybe?
Not today.
Not today? Not right now? Well,
yes,
it's worth a try.
We're not announcing them today. We're getting close.
Maybe you can tell the crowd a little bit about how these regulations are going to create clarity for the future of the auto industry.
Of course. Well, thank you, Ben, and thank you, everyone, for being here. As Ben said, last April, we proposed 2 regulations. One is a multi-pollutant standard for light and medium-duty vehicles, and then the other one is a greenhouse gas standard for heavy-duty trucks. We're currently in the process of finalizing these 2 rules. We had previously said that we intend to announce them both in March, but not today. We're still in interagency review, and we're getting close to the end of the process. That was a very robust engagement with all relevant stakeholders interested in these matters. Let me just say, in terms of certainty, I'm very glad you're asking, because these are, as we proposed, these are performance standards that would allow manufacturers of light, medium, or heavy-duty trucks to select the types of technologies that they actually want to implement for compliance. There are compliance provisions that allow flexibility and that allow manufacturers to make their own decisions about the fleets, the mix of technologies that their fleets will look like. And the way we crafted them, I talk about performance standards because we have been doing performance standards for many, many, many years. But what we looked at are, as always, what are the available technologies that are out there or currently under development? And we're very excited. We were very excited to see that manufacturers are moving toward zero-emission vehicle technologies. There's still investment in internal combustion engine technology, of course, but what we looked at in developing these 2 proposals are the levels of ambition that the manufacturers in both industries are actually looking at. That also was very, very much informed by the investments that Congress made available under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, both funding programs, but in particular the tax incentives that are available. If we finalize them, and we're getting close to announcing final rules that are really focused on and very much informed by the public input we received, we believe that those rules are going to enable very, very significant savings for consumers in terms of reduced fuel costs, and also in the heavy-duty truck industry for fleets, for the purchasers of those trucks in terms of reduced maintenance cost, maintenance and repairs. Those things are a very important part of our analysis, but everybody will be able to see very soon how we're looking at all of those investments that are happening, the incentives, the declining battery costs that are happening, how consumer preferences are changing, and all those things are going to be well explained in what we hopefully will announce very soon.
So earlier today, when I opened the session, I talked about the idea of the future, from my perspective, is going to be electric. It's less a question of if and more a question of when. But when, today we've had Secretary Granholm speak, earlier Gabe Klein, who's the executive director of the Joint Office, Carl Simon just spoke about the idea of this new ports program that was just released, where we have something like 82 days for ports to put in applications for $3 billion. But a big part of this is the idea that these sort of regulations that you're thinking through and that you're getting a lot of input on, probably from people like us and others. But they're not just standalone. And so maybe talk about some of the other things that are happening within the clean transportation
Yes, absolutely.
perspective.
Regulations are just one tool in the toolbox, right? That will allow industry to have certainty in terms of the investments they are making, all the different pieces. But let me speak to our whole of government approach that many of us have been elevating since the beginning of the administration, because it really is working. We have been working very, very closely with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Energy, as well as the Housing and the Housing Department. In the federal government, we have an MOU that we entered into in mid-2022 that led to actually the 4 agencies working together on developing what we call the blueprint for transportation decarbonization that explores many different ways in which we can decarbonize every single part of the transportation sector by 2050. So we put together a blueprint in general that talk about all the different modes of transportation, but we continue to work together now in developing very specific plans for what are the various options within certain timelines all the way to 2050 for each of the transportation sectors. So light duty, heavy duty, marine vessels, rail. We're looking at everything. We're crafting those plans. And then another part of this is how do we all coordinate in the implementation of our funding programs? And as Carl spoke about ports, we spend many, many, many months coordinating with DOE and also with the Department of Transportation, specifically with Merit, on design questions around the implementation of our relevant programs. There are many of them that actually focus on, for EPA, on heavy duty, actually, and on port equipment. And so we all came together to try to plan together for how to make the best use of the money. But the blueprint, let me also say, it makes a very, very important point, which is in order to get there, we all need to work together. We need every single level of government, we need civil society, we need a lot of private investment, and we are really, really delighted to put all of the tools in our toolbox to help think about this, but we also want to continue to engage in every level, in our regulatory and in our collaborative work with other agencies to get this input that helps us all come together with the solutions.
So one of the things that was announced yesterday is I'm going to probably say it incorrectly, but is the zero emission freight corridor strategy. And I think is an example of sort of some of these whole of government approaches. And there are lots of opportunities to think about stimulating action and investment. And we're already seeing in the private sector with more than $300 billion that's coming online for creating manufacturing from batteries, for new vehicle manufacturing, for charging infrastructure manufacturing, even companies like Chempower, who are locating in North Carolina, a Finnish company, and they've come here specifically because of some of the policies that exist in the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, which I sometimes call Uncle Bill and Ira.
Okay.
But maybe talk about some of the other sort of non-regulatory efforts and some of the things from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act that are really moving the needle forward on cleaner vehicles.
So let me start with the time where we had no money. The EPA historically has been working on tools. We have a lot of experts that work on providing technical assistance on how to improve efficiency. So for example, in the freight sector, our Smart Way program, which is very, very popular, we've been working with many fleets on this information about how to measure, how to benchmark in order to improve the efficiency of freight operations, which is good for the environment, but also decrease the cost of goods movement, which makes a lot of sense. So we've been working a lot on developing that type of technical assistance and a lot of information. We also have the Ports Initiative that we've been working on for many, many years, helping ports build emission inventories for how to actually reduce emissions from their ports on a voluntary basis. We had administered programs with much smaller amounts of funding, like the Diesel Emissions Reductions Act, that allows us to replace diesel engines with cleaner engines that meet standards. And in that way, we actually started funding zero-emission vehicle technologies and equipment, which much smaller amounts of funding. But then Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law and created the Clean School Bus program that provided EPA with $5 billion for replacing diesel buses with electric buses and cleaner school buses that are based on other fuels, propane, CNG. And we are currently in the third round. This program is very, very popular. It's making a big difference in helping the health of kids riding those buses to school every day. In 2022, we actually announced the results of our first rebate funding program, which were almost $1 billion. And then we started a second round of rebates last year, and we're almost ready to share information about the results of that program. But also in January, we actually announced the results of the second funding round that we completed, which is a grant program, a competitive grant program that had different kinds of provisions that also was very popular and meets different needs. Rebates work for districts that want to try, and grant programs work for these school districts that are thinking bigger, right? And we also announced that we were granting 67 applications, nearly $1 billion. So we're investing a lot. Half of the school buses that are riding the roads in America are actually EPA funded today. And again, Carl talked about this amazing opportunity we now have to invest almost $3 billion, $2.8 is the exact number, to purchase zero-emission vehicles and equipment and invest in charging infrastructure in the ports. So there's a lot of opportunities that EPA is looking at, but also in the context of the whole of government approach that we're looking with with DOT and DOE, what are the programs and see how they all fit together. We think this is an amazing opportunity that hopefully will help increase the uptake in these technologies in the near term, and also hopefully send signals to drive prices down.
Amazing. I think of this as we have clean school bus programs, 500,000 school buses in the US, or close to. My kid's still riding on a diesel bus. I'm hoping someday one of those buses that gets replaced is a cleaner school bus. We have low-no programs which help with transit buses to help replace those, and obviously that's a big part of the program where there's transit buses across the country that are also operating in some of our most vulnerable populations, including folks like children who are riding school buses and then transit buses, and then Clean Ports program, all these others in conjunction with this regulatory announcement that's coming, maybe next week. I don't know, I keep asking and keep hoping you're gonna tell me the exact date.
This month, but we are getting close to the end, but at this time we're still in the review process, but we feel good about it.
Great.
When we said before and shared publicly that we would announce this in March, we will announce this in March.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to that. We really appreciate everyone sticking around for the conversation, and thank you for sharing a little bit about some of the regulatory opportunities, but also some of the other clean programs that are happening, or clean transportation programs throughout the whole government effort. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking
Ale
for joining us. All right,